About 6 months ago, not that long ago actually, I was talking to a colleague. This colleague had a long, successful career and was retired. And he was saying to me, rabbis are like spiritual athletes. The type of support we provide and the situations we provide it in are challenging, and they use our personal resources. Like athletes, we are, in a sense, performing, but unlike actors, we're being ourselves. And just like athletes perform and then recover, I'm learning in my career that rabbis perform and then recover. And the recovery is just as essential, just as integral as the performance, even though it's much less visible. And so this week, I was thinking about this especially because I had a special opportunity for spiritual recovery. On Thursday, I had the opportunity to gather with a group of my colleagues, really from around the world, and study Torah. And the students in my weekly warm-up Torah study class have already heard a little bit about this, but I've been selected to be part of a year-long cohort through the Rabbinical Assembly, a group of rabbis that will come together for a number of sessions throughout the year for a Jewish spiritual practice called Torah Lishmah. This translates to Torah for its own sake. It refers to the practice of studying Torah solely for spiritual enrichment. Not because we're trying to pass a class, not because we're trying to learn a skill, just learning for its own sake. And this practice is what we do every week in our weekly warm-up Torah study. Every so often, I bring this practice into our Shabbat morning services. And for me, this practice of learning for its own sake, Torah Lishma, in essence, it's who I am. It's at the core of my Jewish identity and my Jewish spirituality. And this is why our weekly warm-up Torah study here at Adat Shalom is so important to me, both as the rabbi of this community and just as a Jew. And leading this learning is a unique experience in my week every week. It's at the same time rabbinic performance and spiritual recovery. I receive from my students and from the community, on a personal level, at the same time I'm giving as a rabbi. And that's what makes my Thursday morning so special. And so now, through this year-long cohort, I have a different opportunity to engage in this practice just with colleagues in a group led by one of my dear teachers, Rabbi Dr. Joshua Kolp, who lives in Modi'in and teaches in Jerusalem. So I knew this first session on Thursday was going to be great. I knew it was going to be a lot of fun, but I really underestimated how it would impact me spiritually, how much it would draw me back in and draw me close to that gift that we call Torah, that body of teaching and wisdom and questions and arguments that has sustained us from generation to generation, from ancient times until today. So today, this week, we're reading Parshat Shoftim, and we're going to take some time this morning to learn together. And right at the beginning of this week's parashah, we have a selection of text that is practically a perfect opportunity for learning using our Eitz Chaim Torah commentary, also known as this book. So let's dive in. And I think I've got the right page numbers this time. It's 1088 and 1089. 1088 and 1089. This is the beginning of Parashat Shoftim, this week's parsha. And what we're going to do is we're going to look closely at sentence 20. So as we do that, or before we do that, let's take a moment or two to orient ourselves to the page, or more precisely, the 2 pages. So when you look at the page, you can see at the bottom there are commentaries. And I think that, I'll just remind us, because we can tend to take this for granted, we always study the text of our Torah along with commentaries. When we learn Torah, it's not just about what the text of the Torah says, it's about what we say in response. And of course, as we know, we always have a couple different opinions in the conversation at least. Now you can see on this page 3 different commentaries. I guess these 2 pages, 3 different commentaries. And this doesn't happen on every 2-page spread. This is sort of a trifecta. And this makes the sentence we're going to focus on, sentence 20, an ideal opportunity for learning using this resource. So we'll start by reading it inside, that is, reading the text of our Torah itself in its English translation. And we'll do this at the top of page 1088 with verse 18 as we move towards focusing on sentence 20. You shall appoint magistrates and officials for your tribes in all the settlements that the Lord your God has given you, and they shall govern the people with due justice. You shall not judge unfairly. You shall show no partiality, for you shall not take bribes, for bribes blind the eyes of the discerning and upset the plea of the just. Justice shall you pursue, that you may thrive and occupy the land that the Lord your God is giving you. Okay, that's our sentence 20, and now we're going to dive in deeper. We did look at this sentence actually this week in our weekly warm-up Torah study, and before we move into the commentaries on the page, I'll share a couple of clarifying insights from that learning that we did together. Usually we hear just the first part of this sentence quoted. Justice, justice shall you pursue, tzedek, tzedek tirdof. So the question was asked, and this is a great question. Can you read the sentence with different punctuation? Justice, justice shall you pursue that you may thrive. And pause there. Can you punctuate the sentence that way? The answer is not really. And if you look at the Hebrew, you can see under the third word, this is on page 1088, after the 20, there's tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, and that's the word tirdof, that's the third word. There's got a little upside-down wishbone thing situation. For those of us who read Torah and Haftarah, we know it's called an etnachtah. It's a trope symbol that indicates both how the word should be chanted or sung, but it's also punctuation. It's like a semicolon. It clearly delineates the middle of the sentence, separating it from the words that follow. So then, another question was asked. Why is it that the second half of the sentence gives us a reason, a positive consequence for pursuing justice? Shouldn't we just pursue justice because it's the right thing to do? And I thought about that one. Yes, we absolutely should pursue justice because it's the right thing to do, but it's more the style of the book of Deuteronomy, the book of the Torah that we're reading this week when we read Parashat Shoftim, to provide the commandment along with the consequence. So for a different example, the second paragraph of the Shema, that's from Deuteronomy chapter 11 a few parshas ago, and it goes like this: if you obey the commandments I give you today, I will grant the rain for you in its season. You'll have grain and wine and oil. You'll eat to contentment. But if you serve other gods, there'll be no rain, and the ground will not yield its produce. In other words, there are many different ways of motivating people to do the right thing. And here in the book of Deuteronomy, Moses is at the end of his life. He's running out of time. As he articulates the commandments, his wording is passionate. Do the right thing or else. And this passionate wording is part of what makes our sentence 20, so compelling. So let's turn to the commentaries. And you can see on the page 3 commentaries, and I call them, and this is actually quoting my teacher, Dr. Joel Garaboff, the above-the-line commentary, thus named because it's above the line. The below-the-line commentary, because it's below the line. And I innovated this one myself, the gray box commentary, because it's in a gray box. Okay. So let's look at the above-the-line commentary first. The intention of this above-the-line commentary is to provide academic and historical context to the verses. So the comment here reads on verse 20, justice, justice. That is justice alone, justice, and only justice. So in other words, the repetition of this word doesn't just bring us emphasis, it brings us clarity. Okay, so now let's move to the gray box commentary. You can see it has a label, halacha lema'aseh. This translates to Jewish law in action. The idea of the gray box commentary is that it illustrates how Torah verses are applied today in our everyday lives. And it reads, this verse is the classical source of the Jewish tradition's demand that we advocate and practice both formal and distributive justice in our interpersonal relations and in society at large. That is, we must judge people using fair procedures, formal justice, and we must ensure that everyone gets at least the minimum of what is necessary to live, distributive justice. And it refers us to the essay Justice, which is beyond the scope of our learning together today, but in case you're curious and can't help yourselves, you can turn to page 1427. There's a whole essay written by Rabbi Elliot Dorff. I think this is one of the resources in the Eitz Chaim Chumash that we don't necessarily know about, the essays in the back, for you whenever you want to explore more. So let's keep us focused on pages 1088 and 1089, though. We'll move to the third and final commentary, the below-the-line commentary. And this, I don't know, this is kind of my favorite commentary on the page, actually. The intention of the below-the-line commentary is to weave in a variety of interpretive sources, both classical and modern, and give us something brief enough to leave us with more questions, but extensive enough to make us think. So here we go. All right, starting on page 1088 and then going up to page 1089. The term pursue carries strong connotations of effort, eagerness. This implies more than merely respecting or following justice. We must actively pursue it, and that's from Abraham Joshua Heschel. This command also means to pursue justice justly, for just goals can never be achieved by unjust means. The worthiest of goals will be rendered less worthy if we have to compromise justice to achieve it, and that's Simcha Banim. Inspired by this verse, by the Torah's vision of a just society, and by a history of living as a mistreated minority, Jews repeatedly have been in the forefront of struggles for social justice. In other words, to quote one of our learners from our weekly warm-up Torah study, you probably have the phrase, justice, justice shall you pursue, on a plaque somewhere. in all seriousness, in our lifetime, this powerful connection between Jewish religion, Jewish culture, and social justice is a major part of what it is meant for us, both individually and communally, to be Jewish. We have organizations like Hadassah, Hayas, National Council for Jewish Women, Magen David Adom in Israel, the list goes on, that are inspired by these words in our Torah portion to do the right thing, both for our fellow Jews and for society in general. Now, in terms of who should be helped first, our fellow Jews or the world in general, I know that for many of us, that question has a different resonance now than it did just a couple of years ago. On this point, Jewish law is actually very clear. It's our responsibility to help our family, our fellow Jews, and our local community first. But Jewish culture, the culture of Jewish social justice and social action, continues to be inspired by the words in our parasha, tzedek, tzedek tirdof, to continually broaden our vision to encompass the whole world. So as we close our learning for today, here's what I want us to take away. Just 3 words of Torah can bring so much inspiration, can bring us a powerful call to action. Whenever we take the time to study Torah, whether we're opening up a book like this, a Chumash, we're using an app on our phone, or just turning to the person next to us in shul and asking a question, we're tapping into a wellspring of knowledge, wisdom, and spiritual depth. Let's remember that in every moment, Torah is there for us whenever we may need it. Shabbat Shalom.